Let's talk about X-Men Dark Phoenix. Spoilers. Now, first of all, I'm a massive X-Men fan, so it's kind of true that I will pretty much watch anything that comes out of the franchise. But with that said, I do genuinely think that this was a decent movie. It does feel like a slightly smaller movie than maybe the last few. It seems like there aren't that many locations, and the story itself feels a little less grandiose. But that's not always a bad thing, especially in such a big franchise where there are movies coming out all the time. You can't really keep trying to up the ante and making them bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. What I liked about this one is that we get to see quite a few of the characters in a different light. It is now the 90s, and the X-Men consist of all the blue X-Men, all the boring X-Men, and Quicksilver. They're kind of the resident superheroes. They have merchandise, apparently, because you see at one point in the movie some kids holding X-Men dolls and things like that. They're pretty popular. Charles has a direct telephone line with the president. Life is good for the X-Men. But there's kind of trouble in paradise. Charles is sending his team on missions that are more and more dangerous and more ambitious, and not everyone is happy with this. Maybe his ego is growing a bit too much, and maybe he's not making sensible decisions anymore. Now, I really love this as an idea, because I do think that the character of Xavier in the comic books and even in the animated series, in the original source material, is flawed. He is prone to making mistakes and just forgetting himself, and in his desire to bring peace between humans and mutants, forgetting about the people that he's taking care of. That was my favorite thing for me that James McAvoy brought to the table when he first came in, because I absolutely adore Patrick Stewart. But Patrick Stewart as Xavier was mostly the mentor, and he was always kind and he was always wise. I love the fact that young Xavier is so flawed. Jean Grey ends up absorbing this weird cosmic power that is kind of making her lose control, and it's very dangerous and it destroys everything. She ends up sort of accidentally and sort of not losing control and killing Mystique. I guess you can sort of tell that she's gonna die because she's being very virtuous and very noble, and she's kind of the captain of the team, and she's taking care of all of them, and she's presented in this very kind of sisterly, motherly light, and that's never good when you see a character behaving like that. They're probably headed towards their demise. But I can see Mystique being that. I know that she's kind of been on both sides in different movies, but I think at her core, they did write her as a very caring character and as somebody who could take the lead and could take charge of things, and she seems to have grown into a leader. So I was pretty sad to see her go. Now, once this incident happens, because Jean has been really destructive and she has kind of attacked some policemen and destroyed several houses in her father's neighborhood, this is obviously really bad news for the X-Men and mutants in general, because people are suddenly once again scared of them. Genuinely, I felt something watching that. There was a real sense of dread and a real sense of, oh no, this whole thing is just being destroyed, and I don't see how they're going to rebuild it. And actually, there's no real evidence by the end of the movie that they have managed to rebuild it. Jean is really upset about what happened, and she finds Magneto, who is now living in a little commune, I guess, in this little peaceful kind of rural place where they don't have a lot of technology and it's just a bunch of mutants living peacefully. Was Michael Fassbender always this hot? I've always noticed that he was an attractive man, but this is the first time when I was just looking at him and just swooning and just going, oh, I just want to watch you. I don't know if it's the fact that he's a little bit scruffy and just wearing t-shirts. I actually think that part of it is the way that the character is presented in this movie. His personality is a lot more attractive. He's a lot warmer than Magneto has been in some of the other movies. So he's great. But so Jean goes to him, kind of for help, and asks him how he stopped himself from doing bad things, because obviously he killed people and he was very angry, and then he stopped and decided to be, you know, good and peaceful and all of that. And while they're having this conversation, the military arrives. And there's a big confrontation. Jean comes out anyway and starts throwing the military choppers all over the place. There's a really cool moment where he's resisting her and he's trying to save the people and get them out of there. It was really cool to see Eric as the good guy. I like the fact that he's a complex character and he has a darker side, but I was always really annoyed when he was presented as kind of unreasonably evil, which has happened several times during these movies. While all of this is happening, we find out that there are these aliens. Now, I was never a massive fan of aliens in X-Men, to be completely honest, but it is kind of nice to have an enemy who is not the humans or other mutants, and they want to take over the world, because of course the world has to be in danger. The funny thing is that in this movie, which is more about personal relationships and kind of like a personal character arc and discovering who you are and what you want to do with your power and difficult moral decisions and correcting your mistakes and not getting carried away, saving the world from aliens seems like a complete afterthought. It's almost like the movie's about something else, and oh yeah, by the way, there are these aliens that want to destroy the Earth. One of them finds Jean Grey and kind of does the usual evil speech of, nobody loves you, but I can show you how to be powerful and you don't need them and just follow me, it's gonna be fine. Then a bit later on, Hank shows up to see Magneto as well. So Hank goes there because he doesn't know where Jean is. He wants to find her, but he wants to find her to kill her. And that is a very quick 180 for Hank McCoy. I'm not sure that fits his personality. When he tells Magneto that Raven is dead, Magneto is really crushed and sad and devastated, a lot more than Charles, it seems. And he agrees to help Hank find Jean and kill her. And I'm like, okay, that's not out of character exactly, but at the same time, you yourself have tried to kill Raven on several occasions. So it seems a little bit hypocritical to immediately snap from I want to be peaceful and I want to be reasonable to let's go and murder a girl. So Xavier's little group and Magneto's little group kind of all show up at the same place, which is in front of this house where Jean is with the main alien antagonist. So they kind of have a battle between themselves first, but they all get arrested basically, and literally all of them, everyone, like Magneto and Xavier, just the whole merry band. So they're all sitting on this train, and I actually really love this bit because they're kind of stuck there. They're all in handcuffs, so they are forced to have a conversation, and Charles admits that basically he's done a really shit job of managing this team for a while now, and apologizes and says that he was wrong to lie to Jean, but also says that this power has not come from him and he would never do that and he would never intentionally hurt her. And he tries to explain this isn't who he is and his intentions are good, and also this isn't who Jean is and she's still somewhere in there. And surprisingly, And very refreshingly, because usually there's a lot more back and forth, Magneto and Hank kind of very quickly stand down and agree and rethink what they're doing. And it seems like they were just operating under the assumption that this was really Jean. I don't think any of the characters are this reasonable in any of the other movies. So while they are all having this conversation, the train gets attacked by the aliens. There's a massive battle on the train with the aliens and everybody's helping. It's all the mutants against all the aliens, that sort of thing's happening. There's some really cool fight scenes, actually not only on the train, throughout the whole thing. There's some really fun to watch effects. They're not necessarily new, but they are pretty cool to watch, and some nice, interesting fight scenes. But anyway, they are fighting, and in the meantime, Charles tries to get to Jean. So Jean is represented as a little girl, and him kind of have a conversation inside of his own head, and he apologizes for what happened to her and for the fact that he lied, and she says that she understands now that he was really trying to give her a family, and she forgives him, and she understands that what she has to do is protect her family. So she wakes up, she obviously breaks the bonds, those things were never going to hold her anyway, she's way too powerful, and she has a battle with Alien Lady. We have the compulsory melodramatic moment where Alien Lady says the biggest cliche ever said in any sort of hero movie: your emotions make you weak. No, my emotions make me strong. And she destroys Alien Lady by taking her up into space and then transferring all the power and kind of just exploding into a big, like, burst of sparkles and fire and things. And of course, everybody thinks that she's dead as well, which we know is not true. And then we see that Xavier's School for Gifted Youngsters has been renamed the Jean Grey School for Gifted Youngsters, which is kind of a nice ending to the whole arc about Charles being too self-obsessed and having too much of an ego. And also we see that he's retired from the school and Hank is now the headmaster, and you know, the school is just going as normal. And the last scene that we see is that Charles is in Paris, kind of enjoying his retirement, but not really seeming to enjoy it at all. He looks quite depressed, in fact. But he's sitting outside at this cafe, and I was like, oh, Eric's gonna show up. Like, there's no way he has to show up. And of course he does. So Eric sits down in front of him and he invites him to a game of chess, but Charles is like, no, bro, I'm not in the mood. I'm depressed here. I don't want to play chess. I'm just gonna mope. And Eric is like, look, listen. A long time ago, you saved my life and you offered me a family, and I want to offer you the same thing now. It's kind of my turn to be the helpful friend. And he's like, okay, come on, let's just play one game for old time's sakes. And he kind of hides two figures in his fists, you know, for Charles to choose, and Charles chooses one and it turns out to be the white one, which I thought was beautiful little symbolism. I thought that was so cool. And they start playing a game of chess, and they start, you know, laughing and joking. And it was such a beautiful ending. It was lovely. I really like seeing those two together. To me, I understand that there has to be the conflict, but to me, they are always more fun to watch as friends and when they are working together, and just this epic bromance. I am excited to see what the next movie is going to be like, because this one made me think that there is a lot more to explore within the X-Men universe. I felt that that was a different type of movie. I didn't feel like they were just rehashing the same old thing again, even though it was smaller, even though I don't think it was meant to be that much of a blockbuster, and it doesn't really aim that high, it did make me want more, which is really cool. So thanks very much for watching this review, and if you haven't seen the movie yet, go and see it. I think it's worth a watch.